Glock 21 Gen 4. That's right. We're going to examine another one. And we're also going to compare this one to the 17 a little bit. Explain my choice of why I got this one. There's so many Glocks out there to get. And I want one more, and I'll explain what that other one is. You always want one more, then when you get that one, it's always one more. But I'll tell you what my next one would be. I'm also going to discuss some more of the stuff we didn't cover on the Glock 17 video about some of the features, the Tenifer nitriding process, the polygonal rifling, the rifling manufacturing technique. And we're also going to, excuse me, talk a little bit about Gaston Glock himself. We didn't really get into this guy. Fascinating guy. And even, we're only going to scratch the surface, but it's going to be enough to amaze you, believe me. If you don't know anything about this guy, what a story. The movie about this guy is good. They really got to think long and hard about who they're going to actually use, but a movie needs to be made. We're going to talk a little about the rise of the company and about his personal affairs. So let's just start with the Glock 21. One thing that the 45 Glocks have unique, the 45 ACP and the 45 Gap Glocks, they have octagonal polygonal rifling rather than the hexagonal shaped bores that are on the others. Meaning that we're going to take a look, and I'm going to show you what the rifling actually looks like later, what this polygonal, is that the right way to pronounce it? Polygonal. The polygonal rifling. It kind of like has a shape when you look in the bore. And most of the Glocks will have 6 sides to that shape, but because of the size of the larger bores in the 45s, they're the only ones that have octagonal polygonal rifling. So that's something that sets them apart. And it's all has to do with a better gas seal, that if you went with 6 sides, it would be, it just wouldn't really be enough sides to properly seal the bullet as it's traveling down the barrel. The Glock 21 is a 45 ACP version of the Glock 20, designed primarily for the American market. Compared to the Glock 20, which is chambered in 10 millimeter. The slide of the Glock 21 is lighter to compensate for the lower energy. Believe it or not, that's right. 45 is actually lower energy than the 10 millimeter. But the Glock 21 is based off of the Glock 20, which was the 10 millimeter chambering. The standard Glock 21 magazine is single feed, staggered column with a capacity of 13 rounds. Again, I'm in the 10 round state, so I have 10 round magazines in these, but you can go up to, clear it there for you, you can go up to 13 rounds that fit, like perfectly in here. Let's compare it. Let's do a little Glock 17 comparison. It's tough, I know, when it's just sitting there on the table. It looks very, it's hard to distinguish it from the 17 actually. And profile wise, it's tough to see anything. It might look a little bit stouter. However, when we line them up like this, you can immediately see the difference. Of course, this is also Gen 5, this is Gen 4, so the 45, the Glock 21 here is the Gen 4, and muzzle profile, you definitely see the size difference. And once again, you see here the recoil spring I have not changed out, like this one I changed out with the tungsten. This one is still the plastic. But the size difference is clearly visible from any other angle except just the profile. Of course, we have night sights here on the 17, non-night sights here on the 21. But I mean, look at that. Look at the slide from the top view. It's, I call it the brick because that's what it feels like. It feels like a brick. But surprisingly, the recoil doesn't really beat the crap out of you. Something about these Glocks, they're very smooth with their operation, and they mitigate recoil very well. Next, we're going to talk about some of the features here, like this Tenifer coating on the slide. That's very unique to Glock. It's interesting. I don't know all this stuff by heart, so I'm going to be reading a little of these particulars as I take it apart. The rectangular slide is milled from a single block of ordnance-grade steel using CNC machinery. The barrel and slide undergo 2 hardening processes prior to treatment with a proprietary nitrating process called Tenifer. You could definitely see, look at the difference in the size of the receiver. Oof. Even in the magazine, the 45 is a large round. Look at the size of this slide. Boom. Tenifer. The Tenifer treatment is applied in a 932 degree Fahrenheit nitrate bath, and that finishes between 0.04 and 0.05 millimeters in thickness, and is characterized by extreme resistance to wear and corrosion. It penetrates the metal, and treated parts have similar properties even below the surface to a certain depth. That's what's like so interesting. It's like the most amazing oxidation resistant coating ever, this stuff. It produces a matte gray colored non-glare surface with a 64 Rockwell C hardness rating and 99% resistance to saltwater corrosion, which meets or exceeds stainless steel specifications, making the Glock particularly suitable for individuals carrying the pistol concealed, as the highly chloride resistant finish allows the pistol to better endure the effects of perspiration. Interesting. Glock steel parts using Tenifer treatment are more corrosion resistant than analogous, I don't know what that word is, gun parts having other finishes or treatments, including Teflon bluing, hard chrome plating, or phosphates. And during 2010, Glock switched from the salt bath nitrating Tenifer process to a not exactly disclosed gas nitrating process. After applying the nitrating process, a black parkerized decorative surfaces finish is applied, and that underlying nitrating treatment will remain protecting these parts even if the decorative finish were to wear off. So even if you get scratches, it's not like rust comes through the scratches, because the Tenifer is actually underneath that. Pretty sick, right? So this is something that you guys are going to find fascinating right here. The barrel. This is something really cool if you're just even have even a little bit of an understanding of how lands and grooves work with rifling. These were really interesting. If you've ever heard, even Glocks were always so perfectly made, the barrels, that you couldn't use a regular process like you would hear on CSI or whatever, that they would take ballistics from a bullet. And everybody knows, you'd look at the lands and grooves under a microscope, you'd be able to match bullets to guns. You couldn't do that with Glocks, because the barrels were so perfect that they didn't even leave those marks on bullets, the imperfections. There were no imperfections. It's pretty crazy. Not many people know that, but it's true. It wasn't an exacting thing. Like, it definitely didn't happen. It was just not as it didn't leave marks as as obvious as other guns did. And a lot of times there just wouldn't be any at all. Let's see, what do we got here? The hammer forged barrel has a female type polygonal. Was it polygonal? Polygonal. A female type polygonal rifling with a right hand twist. The stabilization of the round is not produced by conventional rifling using lands and grooves, but rather through a polygonal profile consisting of a series of 6 or 8 interconnected non-circular segments. Only the 45 ACP and 45 gap have octagonal polygonal rifling. Each depressed segment within the interior of the barrel is equivalent to a groove in a conventional barrel. Thus, the interior of the barrel consists of smooth arcs of steel rather than sharply defined slots. Now, I'm going to see if we're going to be able to get a look at that. Let's see if somehow I can do that. It's not the easiest thing to see even without a camera. I'm going to try something. Let me try to zoom. That might work better. Get just enough light in here. Not too much light, not too little light. There we go, that's not bad. So you see there aren't lands and grooves like you would typically see cut into it. That's crazy, right? It's just like flat parts along the side. Yep. All right, so let's see what else we got. Oh, good thing we have that Tenifer coating. Instead of using a traditional broaching machine to cut the rifling into the bore, the hammer forging process involves beating a slowly rotating mandrel through the bore to obtain the hexagonal or octagonal shape. As a result, the barrel's thickness in the area of each groove is not compromised as with conventional square-cut barrels. This has the advantage of providing a better gas seal behind the projectile, as the bore has a slightly smaller diameter, which translates into more efficient use of the combustion gases trapped behind the bullet, slightly greater consistency in muzzle velocities, and increased accuracy and ease of maintenance. I gotta tell you, man, they do seem to just be that just one step more accurate. That is true. Let's get her back together again. And let's check out our realistic snap caps here. Can't forget about them. So well, what happened? What did I do wrong here? Did I do something wrong? I think I pushed that down all the way. Alrighty, here we have our 45. You guys have seen these a million times, right? Here are our 45 caliber realistic snap caps. Realistic snap caps are both, they're durable, realistic, and high quality. That's what they say on the website, and I agree. Look at how awesome these things are. These are my 45 caliber versions. Every single one of those little silicone primer doohickeys are in there. They never fall out. These things have been cycled through my guns 8 billion times, and they just keep on going. I mean, literally the brass will just eventually wear out. That's literally how far it would have to go. But and again, here, you know what I could show you is what do you call it? That little loading device that they give you. They give you a bigger one. I showed you the one for the 9mm. They give you a bigger one here for the 45. And let me tell you, these things work, and it comes in handy. See, what it does is it Things are nosediving. It holds that round down, so it makes it easier to put in the next one. Look, a little bit of help. Anything to help. It definitely helps. I feel that it helps. Yeah, it's these last two. See that you really gotta. If that was your fingers, you would be struggling. There we go. Nice. 10 freaking rounds. 45 cal. And watch how smooth. Nice. It's chambered. So, you know, these things have a loaded chamber indicator too. I don't know if you know that Glocks have that. I had it written down what year they started that in, but they just redesigned the extractor to that when it's grabbing onto the edge of a round that it sticks up a little bit there. So you actually have a physical, and it's nice because it's kind of like right where your finger would go in the safe position that you could just feel right there to just make sure you got a round chambered instead of having to check. Not that it's that hard to just check, but this is like in the dark. You could even feel that, you know what I mean? That's what's important. So it can never be too tactical. And of course, it doesn't matter if you cycle it slow, fast, we could go slow, we could go fast. Whatever you do, you're not going to get one of these things to fail to feed. It's just not going to happen. So this one does not have the ambi slide release that the Gen 5 had. But it does have a reversible magazine drop, and these work flawlessly. You will never see one of these not work right. So yeah, so that's how awesome it is to play around with these realistic snap caps. And then you can do your own. I was talking about chatting with somebody about this the other day, that you could do your own weird. You could like here chamber around, and then I don't know, how would you? Oh, here, wait, I got a good one for you. Wow, you saw that it did a 180. That's how, and if it's slammed shut on the round like that, it could very easily, the primer could get pinched on something here somehow on the receiver or on the edge of the barrel, and it's facing at you when the slide closes. Think about that when you decide to do drills with live ammo. So we could drop around right in here, and then we could take the magazine and we could put a couple of rounds, and we could close it, and now that's your malfunction. You know, and you could just set up malfunctions like that, and then you just put the gun down, and whoever you're testing, or you set it up for your friend, he sets it up for you, and you just think of different things. So this one, you have to pick it up, and you can't cycle to get this out because you didn't pick up this round yet, and that round is in the way. So you'd have to remove the mag. But look, it's really tough to remove the mag in a situation like that, and this bullet's kind of like hanging out. So right now, you actually chambered on that one. You don't necessarily have to rack, but I popped that round out, and now you're ready to go. Just to be sure, you could just make sure you bring a fresh round into the chamber. These are the types of drills you do with these things without worrying about, catching around on the edge of something, and when it's halfway in and halfway out, and it gets caught and hits right here. So, I don't want to think about it. Gotta be safe. What did I write down here? Listen, here's how to be 100% safe. You have to be 100% safe about the things that are in your control, and you have to eliminate 100% of the safety issues that are out of your control. I invented that, and that's the only way to achieve true safety. Let's take a break. I'm going to show you a little video montage I put together here, because I noticed that a lot of times in movies, when you think you're looking at your regular, I want to say regular, like a Glock 19 or a Glock 17 in 9mm, which are the most common, when you think you're looking at one of those, you might actually be looking at one of these. So check out this video. Milsurp Garage, and we are back. So let's talk about Gaston Glock a little bit. Interesting guy. I want to apologize if I sound a little subdued and quiet. I want to keep the energy up, but we're right in the middle of this pandemic right now, and my job is one of those jobs deemed essential, so I'm going to work every day, and it's not easy. And when I come home, I take like a nap, and everybody's home here, like the whole family. We're all sequestered here, and the only time I really have time to do these videos is around, like, say, midnight or so, around the midnight hour, and then I schedule them to post the next day. So I just don't want to wake up the whole family. You know what I'm saying? So let's talk about Gaston Glock. I got some notes here. So let's see. Now this guy, Gaston Glock. Now, of course, I'm not going to go through this guy's whole biography, so I'm going to skip through stuff. I'm just going to kind of bounce around. He was a prolific inventor. But this guy, he was a civil engineer with an advanced synthetic resin manufacturing background. And he had, plastic plants, like outside of Vienna in Austria. And in 1980, he did a lot of work for the Austrian Ministry of Defense. Stuff like munitions belts, shovels, practice grenades, entrenching tools. Is it entrenching or trench tools? He actually has a patent for like a kind of like a fold up shovel, like stuff like that. And the Australian Ministry of Defense, they would have these things where people would come and they would decide what implements to use for their military. And you would be able to come and they would tell the people that were involved in the bidding or in the making process, like the people that wanted to offer their goods and say, the military would pick, they would tell them exactly what it was they were looking for and give them a certain amount of time to make the stuff and hopefully be able to cover all the points that they wanted in their items and things like that. So while he was in one of these meetings, he had nothing to do with firearms manufacturing at all, but he overheard these two high-ranking officers speaking about a request for proposal for 5 arms manufacturers for production of a handgun to replace the Walther P38s that they were using. So he overheard this, okay? So now, what they were talking about, supposedly, these colonels, were that there were 17 mandatory features required to satisfy the Austrian Ministry of Defense. And they were requesting an accurate, lightweight, durable pistol with a large capacity magazine, and it had to conform with NATO rounds. And they were saying that they had a certain timeline, and that their expectations were that they'd be able to get 70% of the features that they wanted. 70%, right? So let's see, I just want to make sure I get this right. So also these guns, they had to worry about like how many parts they were using and stuff like that. And they figured anywhere from 45 to 60 parts, 60 working parts. That was like the window that they wanted. They didn't want any more than 60 working parts, And Glock overheard these guys talking, and he introduced himself, and he said, hey, what would it take for me to be considered to do? I think I might be able to get something like that done. It doesn't sound like you're asking for much. And these guys kind of blew him off and were like, you're not one of the arms manufacturers. We only get from those specific arms manufacturers, and that's it. You know what I mean? So he didn't like that, and he checked into things and found that because he was one of the ministry bidders list. He was on the ministry bidders list, and his status was a current supplier, that he was allowed to receive the specifications that were asked for and the bid process compliance parameters. And he was allowed to submit something because he was part of that group. So this took 2 years of working. And supposedly, this is what I have written here, he took every pistol on the market, took them apart. This is kind of like why the Glock is kind of like a mix of a lot of different designs and ideas. So you can kind of see where that comes from. He always felt that he was one step ahead because he wasn't handicapped with any preconceived notions about how guns should be made. But he pulled apart all those guns, looked at those different designs, and and also honestly here it says to supplement his inexperience, he hired 2 notable armaments consultants and had a series of focus groups to create the gun that he wanted to submit. And he had such a highly developed experience. He had highly developed experience with polymers and manufacturing expertise. He definitely had that going for him. He didn't need to be consulted on that. So he melded those skills together to design a gun that had 34 moving parts. It held 17 rounds, and it weighed less than any other weapon that was submitted. It was better engineered, more precisely manufactured, cheaper by a long shot. A sophisticated gun that cost around $70 to make. Every Glock has a polymer frame, precision molded slides, and a patented heat treatment to augment resistance to wear and rust. There was nothing like it, and it proved reliable, durable, and accurate. And it incorporated all 17 requisites and was entered into Austrian Army trials for the weapon in 1982. And it won. He sidestepped 5 other key manufacturers when the Austrian Ministry of Defense awarded the contract for 25,000 Glock polymer carbon steel hybrid pistols and unleashed a commercial juggernaut into the staid ranks of the world's gun manufacturers. It was adopted by the Austrian military and police and designated the P-80. The closest competitor, Smith & Wesson, who had been in business since the 1850s, was displaced. So that's pretty amazing, huh? And so let's see what else. Now, that's some stuff about the company. Oops, sorry about that. My notes are attacking the camera. So the holding companies for Glock are located in Liechtenstein. And another example of shrewd management is that there are token corporate taxes levied on holding companies in the Principality, whatever the hell that means. The Liechtenstein holding company is Unipatent, a corporate entity co-owned by Glock and Charles Ewert, his then financial genius. Now check this out. Don't let me lose you, because this is where it gets crazy. I have to just preface that because you have to understand where this comes from and who this guy. So it looks like there's like some kind of business deal there where there's like, somebody owning half of it for financial reasons and whatever, right? So this Charles Ewert guy, eventually it comes to light to Glock that this guy embezzled $30 million from him. So when he started finding that out and figuring out what was going on, right? This guy Ewert contracted somebody to murder Glock in 1999. And this is a 70-year-old guy, right? So who does he hire to kill him? He hires an ex-legionnaire named Jacques Pichour, who was also a professional wrestler who wrestled under the name Spartacus. So this guy attacks Glock not with a gun, but like with a hammer or something. And Glock gets the hammer away from this guy and beats this guy half to death, knocks out his teeth, whatever, and this guy gets caught. And all of this whole murder plot comes out and everything. And both of these guys, Ewart and this Spartacus character, get like 20 years in jail apiece. But what was bad for Glock was that the court proceedings regarding this attempted murder, and since there was embezzlement involved and everything like that, it revealed a network of shell companies as the corporate finances became part of the court record. Glock claimed no knowledge of these companies and that he didn't know the financial aspects. He's blaming it all on this guy. Well, the guy did try to kill him, so now, how could you not believe that he didn't have his best interests in mind? If you try to kill somebody, you obviously don't have their best interests in mind for their company. So supposedly there was this other guy now, this guy Paul F. Iannuzzo. He's a former CEO, because Glock would go through all these CEOs like real fast. These guys wouldn't last longer than like 8 months or something. So this guy had said that he was skimming $20 per gun off since he started making them, and that this money and half of the gross from the U.S. subsidiary were clandestinely funneled to Liechtenstein, according to this guy Januzzo. The former U.S. chief executive had previously represented the company on CBS's 60 Minutes. It is estimated that there have been 5 million units sold since the late 80s. So the allegations amount to a substantial amount of money. Now listen to this. Iannuzzo, a former state prosecutor, is in whistleblower litigation attempting to gain a percentage of funds recouped as a result of stepping forward on his previous employer. So how do you trust that guy? He's getting a cut of the money that was embezzled. To demonstrate the adage that turnabout is fair play, Gaston Glock is suing Januzzo for embezzlement. There you go. It says that in day-to-day happenings with the U.S. subsidiary in Cobb County, Georgia, Gaston Glock has ground up 7 national sales managers in 11 years. A job that takes 6 months to get your feet under you. You're kicking these people out like right away. Yep. And Glock went through all of the extensive official processes, and they're arduous, to become a manufacturer of pistols in the USA, as there is strong protection for U.S. gun makers, and Glock sales have consistently soared since. By units and dollars, it is estimated the annual sales are in the 100 million range. And one last thing, I'm not even going to get into like his whole relationship with his family, because this guy, he had a wife since the 40s or whatever that he divorced and married some young woman and wrote his family out of the will. I don't even want to get into that part of it, or that's like sad. But the one part that's really cool about this guy is that he has a corporate jet and he flies it himself. There you go. So, yeah, that'll tell you a little bit about the guy. So that's the information I have on Gaston Glock. So, yeah, listen, this thing has the same back straps back here, and I have on the largest one with the beaver tail. And it's huge, man. I'm telling you, I didn't buy this brand new. It was basically brand new. A guy fired it once. He said, I bought it. I put one magazine through it. I put it back in the case. And I held on to it for like a year or so, whatever it was. And I bought it from him at a gun show. Because he said it was, he liked the idea that it was 45 caliber. But, I mean, it's double stack mag. So it's just, look at the size of the magazine even. Look at that slide. It's huge. It doesn't seem it when you see pictures of it, or even if you just see it sitting like this view, it doesn't look that big. But from the top view, then you start to realize the width. And this was a small guy. The guy that I bought it from was a small guy. So he was like, I just couldn't get my hand around the thing. So you might actually find some of these like on the used gun market with like, it's like one of those things like the 44 Magnums, you know what I mean? Only fired once. So, you know, you take a look. But the Gen 4, it has the finger grooves, you know, and it's, but, you know, it has the accessory rail here. It has these removable back straps that makes it more comfortable, that you could tailor it for yourself. And I'm a righty, so I don't really mind the non-ambi slide release. And I love firing it. I love 45s, and this thing is just a really well-behaved 45 that handles really well. Glock 21. Oh, I said I would talk about my next one. My next one is the, I think it's the 42. When I got the 17, if you're going to just get a Glock, just get a 17 or a 19 as your first one, just in my opinion, just because you just need like the bread and butter. I would get the 17. And then you have a decision to make from there. Do you want to go smaller, where you could get like a Glock 26 that's 9mm subcompact, like for easy carry? Or you could get the 42, which is 380 single stack, thinner, smaller, like more like a pocket gun. So you could go smaller, or you could want to get larger to the Glock 20 and 10mm, or the 45 here. So I opted to go larger first, but now I want a smaller one too. And I figured if I had those three, a smaller one, the middle ground with the 17, and then a larger, you know, brick, would be a cool little Glock collection there. Small, medium, and large. You know what I mean? So that was my thinking. And I guess that about wraps it up. Thanks for this late night COVID-involved video. We're in the middle of the craziness right now. It's, what is it, April? It is April 10th. Is it the 10th? Yes. April 10th, 2020. Boy, people will be remembering these times, but you know what? I figure it eases my brain a little bit to have like a sense of normalcy, like I'm doing something that's normal by like making a video for you guys. And I guess there's a lot of people that are sitting home with nothing to do, so they could listen to my nonsense for, geez, how long has this been? I gotta go. Yeah, this has been Milsurp Garage, and thank you to Realistic Snapcaps here. I just spoke to my contact over there just the other day. Very supportive. These guys are Second Amendment supporters, and they actually bailed out of Amazon because Amazon is not Second Amendment friendly, and it's a company that thinks more about, you know, the state of our country and caring about the Second Amendment and our Constitution than about the bottom dollar. And I like that. And that's why I support these guys. These things are made in the United States, with United States materials on equipment made in the United States, you know. And then I looked at some of my older Snapcaps, and I'm like, you know, it says on the package, like, made in China. Why should I buy Snapcaps that are made in China when there's a company in Arizona producing these awesome examples? And it's not like they're charging a ton of money. Check the description down there. You get 10% off with my coupon code. And these guys don't even charge shipping. They're awesome. And thank you, of course, to Beerzerkradian for his awesome music in my intros and outros. And you all take care, and I will see you soon. I don't know what I'm coming back with, but I think it might be a shotgun, and it's going to be awesome. I'll see you later. Music, yeah!
All right.